To get started, Keen Tools is right here on the bottom left-hand side of Nuke. You'll see there's a few tools within here, but it's very light. There's only a couple nodes that we really need to go over today. So let's get started. First, I'm just going to tab in FaceBuilder. The FaceBuilder is the tool that is going to allow us to model the face that we're looking for. And Tom and Maria were very kind in offering this footage up to us. This is a test we're doing for a job currently where we are wanting to apply tattoos and have them wipe on and off throughout the shot. So we shot two different plates, one with the tattoos, one without. The object here is to track on the tattoos under our face as we see fit. So what we are going to do is first we need to build a model. FaceBuilder comes with its own geometry, which is uniform. And why this is so great is that no matter what face we model, the UVs are identical. So transferring information from one geometry to another is pretty seamless. First thing I'm going to do with my FaceBuilder is I'm going to connect it up to my clean plate here. Doesn't really matter what plate you start with. So when I do that, you'll see that not much happens. There is also a camera tab here, which I'm just going to create a default camera. If you have a scene camera, you can plug that in, but it does require a camera to work. If you don't have a scene camera, if it's locked off, feel free to just go ahead and use just a default new camera. You don't need to change any settings. So once we are in here, there's a lot to go through here. I'm not going to go step by step through each of these. There's a lot of things that you guys can do on your own time. I just want to give this as a brief overview of how to get started. The first thing we want to do is we go up to the top here in the viewer and it says Center Geo. All right, here's the Geo for Keen Tools. If we go into our 3D viewer, you'll see we do have the geometry in here. It's very basic head geometry. And I'm going to tab back out. The next thing I want to do, this is kind of a new update to Keen Tools, is the aligned face. It'll automatically look for facial features, recognize them, and align the face as best it can right out of the way. The frame that I'm looking at right now is probably the best neutral face, and you always want to build off of a neutral face if you have it. If you're having a model off of something with the mouth already open, it can definitely askew the geometry and lead to tracking issues later on down the road. So finding a neutral face is key. The other option is on set, if you know that this is part of your pipeline to begin with, simply get some orthographic photographs of the talent from the side, 3/4, and front. And then we can model from all three of those views and get us a much closer representation of this geometry, which definitely helps us. In this case, she does turn her head to the right at the end, so we can use that as kind of a profile to adjust. But let's jump in here and maximize this screen. So all the red dots here are control points that allow us to move the geometry. By simply selecting one, I can skew the geometry until it lines up. You'll notice that the areas here in blue, these are areas that are actually going to be able to be animated properly once the geometry is set in the face tracking phase. So we want to get these as close as possible, but we also want to be really focused on jaw lines, chin, everything else around the head and the shape, because those are not going to be able to be manipulated after we have completed this geometry. The only way to go back and fix that later is to rebuild the model and do it again, which does happen a lot. And thankfully, this is a very quick process. So if you have to go backwards a step, I recommend doing that rather than trying to make something work that doesn't. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust all the geometry to be as close as possible to what we're seeing. We can also add other control points. So say her eyebrow goes up a little bit more here. I can just click and it will create another place for me to manipulate. So I'm going to bring this down here, just making sure the ears are lined up best they can. Now I'm not doing any work to the ears or the neck at this point, so I know that, but I still like getting this geometry in here because it'll contour the face a little bit better all the way around. So corners of the mouth, we'll align those. Nostrils. And it is important to take your time and do this right. You better to do it once the right time than having to go back constantly and redo it. Now, like I said, there will be some trial and error when you get started, so don't be frustrated if the first time you do this, it does not work out. Now that's pretty good. Now I want to kind of look at the chin here, and it's kind of difficult at this angle to see where that chin is aligning. And I am just going to pull the neck in here to kind of give me a better neckline. I am looking at the center red line. This is actually pretty important to make sure that it goes right up the center of the nose, down the center of the mouth, and straight through to the chin. It's kind of a good alignment tool for you. I do notice over here that the ear has definitely kind of come in, but actually it's what it is the whole side of the face. Now I'm looking at this and it's black on black, and that's very difficult to register. So we can go to the appearance tab, and we have this opacity slider, which allows us to bring the opacity of this up and down. Alternately, we can always use the gain or gamma in our viewer to kind of help with that as well. So I'm going to put a point here and pull that cheek line until it's as close as possible. Now that I see that, I reveal more of the ear. I'm just going to bring the ear up to kind of match in its position. And again, the chin I see here, but it's got a long fall off where she has a well-defined jawline. So I'm just going to pull the neck up a little bit, tuck it under that chin, and so forth. So overall, this is a pretty good starting point as far as the geometry goes. I'm not going to overdo it on this front one. I'm pretty happy with it. The reason being is because now that we have gotten one set of geometry set, I want to go to a different profile and make sure that the geometry aligns to that. So I'm just going to scrub forward, and I know that she turns her head here. I'm looking for a position where her hand is not as much on the face to interfere with what we're doing, which something right there looks pretty good. So up here at the top, you'll see there's already been one keyframe set that was automatically set when we started doing the geometry there. I'm just going to do again what we did before. I'm going to center the geo, and I'm going to align to face. And that's going to get us a pretty close starting point. You'll see that our keyframes have gone up to 2. So it's registering 2 different keyframes for this model. And as we can see, there's a few things that are misaligned, which is expected. So I'm just going to start going back through here and addressing these as needed. Kind of keeping the edge of the face there. This eye definitely needs to come down. And it's good to use the same control points that you had before as much as possible, or at least start with those and then add in as needed afterwards. Like I said, the face and the jawline are very important right now because we can't adjust them later. So I'm just trying to get these as close as possible. Again, taking a look at my line that's going straight down the chin, up through the nose on the bridge. I do notice that the nostrils could probably be slightly bigger, and I'm going to tuck the edge of the nose in there. I'm going to go back to my slider as well, and just because it's kind of hard to see where those edges are sometimes, so I'm just going to pull that in until it's as close as possible and bring the edge of the nose out. Here we got the side of the eye. So I do notice that the side of the face is getting a little, so I'm going to start adding in a couple of custom shapes to try and adjust that. And if you look at our 3D viewer as we're going, this model is changing, and it's always good to kind of come back in here and just double check it to make sure something didn't go awry. I've definitely pulled something a little too far sometimes, and it starts looking very alien, and those don't always track as well. So just trying not to overdo it. Get those corners of the mouth in there. And let's bring that back up. This is starting to look pretty good. Okay. I think overall this is a pretty good representation. Now there is geometry that goes all the way to the back of the head. This one actually aligned pretty well. Obviously the hair sticking up above the scalp, so that makes sense why it's a little short. I don't worry too much about the top of the head. As a matter of fact, we have the option in our FaceBuilder to determine what geometries we want to use. So a lot of times I'll turn off the scalp. You can turn off the lower neck. You can turn off anything you want, upper neck. Since we are just doing the face, I don't really need those things that I don't need to pay attention to. I do like keeping them on when I'm model building because at least that gives me the controls to adjust the neck if I need to adjust something under the chin. But overall, those can be be turned off. So now I have two decent frames of this geometry, but I think that's the best representation we're going to get off of this based on the footage that I have.